I literally just got back from the barbershop. I'm still trying to hide my gray hair. And everybody at the barbershop is talking about the Avengers. It's a spoiler zone. It's not a spoiler-free zone at the barbershop. So the comic book brothers are breaking down the story, talking about Adam Warlock, trying to explain the Soul Stone, and you got the neophyte, where they like the movies but didn't read the comic books. They're trying to follow along. So I guess Marvel, again, and Disney have a phenomena on their hands.
Earlier today, I was just bouncing around YouTube. I found audience recordings of the last 30 seconds of the movie, and I think from Italy and Hong Kong. And the audible wails of dismay when the thing that happens at the end of the movie happens need no translation. Wherever you are in the world, when you realize what's about to happen, you just go, oh God. You know, your hand goes over your mouth. It's so great to see it so universal, you know?
Thinking about that moment for, again, folks like us and others who've read these comic books our whole lives, since probably as long as we can remember. Like, so we go there, and part of the joy for us is we know what's going to happen. You know, my fun is going to see it again with folks who just watch the movies who may not even know, you know, Thanos from Superman or from Magneto or Galactus, even though any of those characters are, right? And watching how they're going to react. It's almost like going to a horror movie when you've already seen it.
I had this with the original Avengers. I saw this in the UK about 2 weeks before I moved to California for 4 months. I saw it, and then Margaret and I met up in New York, and we went to see it just off Times Square. The feeling of sitting there, knowing what happens at the halfway point of the movie, and I'm going, do I tell her? Do I not? And of course I didn't. And it was just, it's both more fun and worse when you know it's coming.
And as we always say, you know, channeling Roger Ebert, you know, in our several conversations we've now had about various films, and I sense this may be one of those rare conversations when we're not complaining. We may have to see, you may surprise me. I'm sure I can find some things to improve too. But in the spirit of Roger Ebert, how did Infinity War make you feel?
In terms of thumbs, 2 thumbs way up. In terms of whether or not I was sobbing as the thumbs were going up, oh, absolutely I was. This has emotional stakes that Marvel don't normally do. And even though you know how a lot of this stuff's going to shake out, it still hits. A friend of mine summed it up perfectly when she went to see it, came out, and the only thing she tweeted for an hour after it was, I have been emotionally compromised.
And even though you knew it was going to happen, why did it hit you so hard to actually see it unfold, to actually see Groot disappear, which made me sad. I love me some Groot. Guessing who's not going to return, right? Logically seemed like Iron Man, unless they extend his contract. Captain America, right? He's going to hang him up. And maybe Bucky the White Wolf will take over.
It was that, and it was Tom Holland's performance. Because, I think because they gave Pete such great stuff all the way through that movie. And that moment when he stumbles into shot going, Mr. Stark, I don't feel good. And suddenly you go, oh, Jesus, it's a kid. And he's been so competent and so sweet all the way through this. And suddenly he's a terrified little boy. And there is nothing you can do but watch him die. That, especially if you come into it with the weight of the other movies and with the very nuanced and complicated relationship that he and Tony have, where Tony wants to encourage this kid and make sure he does it right. And at the same time is aware that he's a kid and Tony is the one directly responsible for putting him in danger. That scene just has an anvil behind it in terms of emotion.
In terms of my response to it, obviously 2 big thumbs up as well, that there's something to be said, you know, the purpose of art is to elicit an emotional response from the audience, from the viewer, from the listener, for the person at the museum looking at your paintings, whatever it may be. And I think sometimes the best art, it can be high culture, low culture, whatever it may be, you know you're being manipulated. So I'm sitting there watching this movie, and I know I'm being manipulated by very, very skilled people in terms of how they're setting up the parallels with the choices, about the relationships, about sacrifice. Just thinking about, you know, Gamora and Nebula, and how she basically violates the rule, the promise that she made Star-Lord make about her in order to save her own sister. Thinking again, obviously, about sort of the family dynamic with Guardians of the Galaxy, because, I mean, part of the genius of the Marvel films and what they've been able to do is they're just movies that happen to be comic book movies. There's one is a heist film, one is a family drama or comedy, another one is international spy, 007 type intrigue. So I'm sitting there watching saying, I am being manipulated. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. I'm like, these guys are just so good at what they're doing.
Absolutely. I used to be a stage magician when I was younger. It taught me an awful lot about how I approach pop culture and how I break stuff down and analyze it. And the most important lesson that I took away from it applies directly to that. It doesn't matter if you know what the trick is. It doesn't matter if you know how everything is going to play out. If it's executed well, if it's done brilliantly, if there is a twist in there you don't see coming, or even if it's just a punchline that lands better than you're expecting it to, that's where the joy is. There's pleasure in the journey as well as the destination with stuff like this. And you're right, it's intensely manipulative, but God, they're good at it.
Again, thinking about screenplay writing 101, story writing 101, certainly we have to talk about how we got so old, because as I left, I was thinking, man, I never thought I'd see this on the big screen. I must really be 40. We got the Infinity War movie, and I can go to CVS and buy sex toys. What year is it? Literally, you're like, how the hell did this happen? We really are through the looking glass. So from the Avengers and sex toys, they do such a great job in this movie of showing and not telling. They have some necessary exposition, but boom, media res, you're in the story, and we're going to show you exactly what's going to happen. We're not going to have, I think there's one obligatory exposition stupid people scene, as I like to call it. We got to talk to the stupid people to catch them up about what's happening. But they're so good in these sort of fundamentals of storytelling.
This one in particular, as you say, the fact that inside the first 5 minutes, you have two main characters dead. It seems so deliberately designed after a decade of Josh Brolin shows up for 2 minutes painted purple to go, oh, something's happening. And this time it's like, no, I'm here. Two people you follow for the last decade are dead. There's another 2.5 hours of movie. Get comfy. Or not. It is the most precision-tooled, massive-scale film, I think, of the modern age so far. It does vast amounts of stuff, and basically nothing fails, which is kind of amazing.
Josh Brolin, the film is on his shoulders in so many ways, his very broad shoulders, apparently as Thanos. And he's a great villain because everything he says from a certain point of view makes sense. And the villain is the hero and the victim in their own story. And if he was too campy, if he didn't have the mannerisms, and he's so subdued in his power, man, Brolin was great. The Oscar folks hate genre films, but this man, based on what he did in this movie and fingers crossed the next one, give this man an Oscar nomination because he just destroyed it.
I know. You nailed it when you said he's subdued, because he is. And there's no gloating.
No. Does he even enjoy what he's doing?
That's the thing. The 1 or 2 times you see him actually having fun, it's still terrifying because it's pitched one-on-one combat with people. The mantle of the responsibility Thanos has convinced himself he has sits very heavily on him. That's such a genius move because at no point in the film do you look at this man and go, do you know what? He has a point. Because he does. A hideous monstrosity of a creature. But at the same time, at no point in the film do you not look at him and go, well, he thinks he has a point. And so much of what makes him disturbing comes not from his power, but from the fact he's aware of what he's doing and he still feels like he has to do it.
There's no over-the-top, cackling villain moment. This is a character who suffered. Hell, maybe I'm a Malthusian in my own way. Maybe he's got a point. And he never winks at the audience. And as you said, there's that sort of honorable combat, especially the scene with the Hulk and how he breaks the Hulk, which is just wonderful. If Brolin was over the top, if he was winking, breaking the fourth wall, he's just this amazingly powerful entity who's just trying to bring order to the universe, even if it hurts him to do so.
Yeah. One of the most powerful moments in the movie is the end, is the shot of him alone, realizing what he's done. Brolin brings such incredible weight to that moment because you can see the vast satisfaction. You can see how happy he is that the job is done. You can see him realizing in his mind, from his view, he's saved the people who are left. You can also see him accepting the other mantle he's going to carry for what he feels is the rest of his life. He's the guy who killed half the universe. Brolin does this incredible, silent, physical thing with his face where grief and joy and relief and duty just hit one another all at the same time. And you see all of it, despite him being 12 foot tall and purple at the time. And it's just kind of amazing.
And that he was able to do that with all the motion capture technology.
As you say, the emotions he's able to put across are all resolutely in character. There's no drops to his knees in the rain screaming no moment. Thanos is a man shackled to duty. He does these terrible, terrible things.
And even if it means killing his daughter.
Yes. And, I mean, if you want to talk about a moment where the movie could have fallen apart, it's that. And I know a lot of people view that moment as Gamora being fridged. I don't. Because she knows it's coming, because he knows it's coming, and crucially because of 2 other things. 1, we are so very far from done with her. And 2, Brolin's performance. And all of that, it's almost biblical. He's at the top of the mountain sacrificing his child for power. And he knows he's doing it. It doesn't feel cheap. It feels horrifying, and it should do.
And it's funny you mentioned biblical, because, one of my fun hobbies is going online and looking at white supremacist movie reviews, because they have a very interesting take, to say the least. And I'm also honestly curious about Christian fundamentalists and what they're going to feel about this movie, because literally Thanos is bringing the rapture.
And there is an opportunity there to do a thing Marvel haven't done for a while. I would not be at all surprised if season 3 of Luke Cage or season 3 of Jessica Jones, you have support groups who were left behind. after half the universe was wiped out and have convinced themselves they were left behind after the rapture because they have no evidence to the contrary. And even folks who will believe that kind of thing, even when they have evidence to the contrary, don't believe it.
Some of your favorite notes in the film? Throw one out. Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy, they need their own damn movie because the chemistry there is just amazing. And the one little thing, as I said, folks in the barbershop are talking about this because some of the reviewers, I think, are being very unfair. There's some folks who are professional contrarians. They're just going to hate something to hate it just to be contrary because